Yeah.
How many comment, and from which sites do they come?
Right. So some stats. So all web stats are bullshit, but we can agree on some terms of on some common references. So when we run a raw default configured AW stats against Boing Boing, which is what we use, we get, I think it's about 400,000 unique visitors a day and about 2 million unique visitors a month. I think our average visitor generates like 4 to 6 page impressions, but I'm not entirely sure. And we don't know how many RSS readers we have. And anyone who tells you that they know how many RSS readers they have is lying. But we've had numbers delivered to us from metrics firms that range from about 500,000 to about 3 million, and we don't know. We are more focused on kind of figuring out how to make money off of the traffic than we can count than figuring out how to make all of our traffic into traffic that we can make money off of, if that makes sense. So like, for example, Boing Boing is mirrored to defeat censorship through something called distributed Boing Boing, and it's mirrored on lots and lots and lots of sites around the world. We encourage people to do it. That's like outside of the terms of our Creative Commons license. This is like, in addition to the Creative Commons mirrors and the RSS aggregators and so on, there are lots of sites, and we've heard from one of them that he gets 100,000 unique readers a day, and that's one, and there's dozens, and so we don't have any way to count any of those. We think that we have a large sphere of influence, but we don't really have any good way of quantifying it. Like being the largest blog on the web called Boing Boing, we also have the most hits of any blog on the web called Boing Boing.
Do you put advertising in RSS feeds?
We do, yeah, sometimes. It's hard to sell that inventory, and a lot of the time people who want to buy that inventory want to do gross things in it, like have like pop-ups and music and all kinds of crap. So we turn down a lot of the people who've approached us for RSS advertising. One of the things about RSS is that it's hard to count, as I say, and so it's hard to figure out what a CPM is for feeds. But we do put stuff in the feeds when we can figure it out. I think that's a better answer than like partial text feeds. I hate partial text feeds. I think they're really ungenerous and really contrary to the nature of feeds. I also hate feeds that have like, I think that feeds that have Creative Commons licenses on them that allow you to aggregate them are also kind of bullshit, because I think that you have an implied license with RSS feeds to aggregate them. That's like having a Creative Commons license that gives you permission to search the page and put it in Google. You don't need a Creative Commons license to search the page and put it in Google. There's an implied license when you put a page on the internet for Google to search it, and there's an implied license when you put a feed that's available without a password on a published URL to aggregate it. And I think that people who say otherwise are talking out of their ass.
And the last question, by the way, what is the CPM for banners on your website?
I don't know. That varies from campaign to campaign, but we don't really talk about money, like actual dollar figures. But it also varies. Like our salespeople go out, because they're FM salespeople, and they go out and they do all kinds of deals that have different CPMs and that are across multiple sites. So what we usually count is our aggregate CPV over a month, our how much we generate, or RPV I guess sometimes it's called, how much money we generate for each page view, which includes all the ad units on an average over the span of an entire month, and we use that as a metric, and we don't talk about that number.
What are your favorite web tools you use for blogging and to be updated?
Yeah, what tools do I use? So I played with a lot of tools, and they all seem to have the core problem that you end up being very tool dependent, and my blogging environments tend to be really heterogeneous and catch as catch can, because I travel a lot, and I blog in very interstitial moments when I'm like, you know, I'll download a bunch of stuff and then write about it on the tube and then find some Wi-Fi and then post it. So I try to strip my tool set down to the smallest and most reliable set that I can. So all of our suggestions come in via email. So we have a web form and it submits email, and it has some back end that does some automatic ranking and tries to pull out the stuff that looks like spam. We get a shitload of spam to our suggestion site, and then I have some filters on my email just in Thunderbird that do things like look for suggestions from people who are already in my address book or whom I've already responded to, and also ones that have certain keywords, so that it sorts it that way. And then for writing blog posts, I just use a text editor, and I've used different text editors over the years. These days I'm using a Linux text editor called Gedit, G-E-D-I-T, the GNU editor, which is just a GUI editor. I've imported the the BBEdit key bindings from BBEdit on the Mac, which is my old text editor. And a reader of mine actually wrote me some really good scripts for it in Perl that do things like convert all the curly quotes to straight quotes before posting, because of course half the time when you copy curly quotes from someone's web page, paste them in as a quote, and then post them back out again, somewhere in there the Unicode gets munged and it comes out in like Cyrillic or whatever, unless of course you're posting in Cyrillic, but it comes out in not as the characters you wanted them to be, which you know is a pain in the ass. So I used a text editor, and I use the GIMP to resize images. I don't do much else with images. I tend to just resize them a little, and I use a snap screenshot app called K-Snapshot to just take screenshots in my browser window. I use VLC to capture out of videos, which is good. It's better than I think most of them. It's got a built-in screenshotting function, which I like. And I use the movable type web interface to post. I do some stuff that I think, some little hacks in my browser and so on that make it much better for me. My text editor I've got set to remember my last 10 million edits, so I can do Control-Z all the way back through, and I can find old posts that way. And I just keep a text. It's a Linux box, so I reboot it like once a month. So I can go back through like all of my posts just by doing Control-Z and Shift Control-Z backwards and forwards. So if I need to find something, I can find it that way. And like sometimes you'll post something and it doesn't show up. You can go back in time and get it that way. And I use, I also have the number of field fill-ins to remember on my browser, on Firefox, also set to 10 million. So when I enter a headline in Boing Boing, because I tend to enter headlines in the same way, if I enter a headline about like Ghana and I type GHA, I'll get the drop down, and I don't use that to autofill in the headline, but I use it to see what other posts I've made about Ghana, and then I can go through just Google. I type in like site:boingboing.net space Ghana, and I can find those 5 posts and put them in as see alsos at the bottom of the post. But it's like it's all really kind of hacked together, kludged together. I don't use any of the Blogger API tools on Linux. None of them do what I need them to do. They don't set categories, or they don't include images or whatever. It's all pain in the ass. And then to upload images, I have a shell script that is literally like scp:/desktop/star.jpg, and then boingboing.net:images and semicolon/rm desktop star.jpg. So like upload all of my upload everything that ends with JPEG to the Boing Boing images directory, and then remove everything on the desktop that ends with JPEG. So like I don't have like a fancy editor to do my image uploading or anything. It's really just kind of put together.
I have another question about technique. You used a movable type platform, and you recently brought back the comment sections, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But my question is, did you manually remove the nofollow attribute? Because it's part of the default settings in WordPress, and movable type, and pretty much all the big blogging software. So my question is, you don't have a nofollow attribute on your blog. Did you remove it on purpose?
I don't actually know. If anyone had asked me, I would have told them to take it out, though. I'm not a big fan of nofollow. It kind of implies that nothing good is ever mentioned on a comment board, which I think is wrong. I also don't think it stops spam. Spammers don't care, right? The spammer, so one of the things I discovered, we have this like obscure form to submit links to Boing Boing, right? And it's a hard form to automate a submission to. It has all this kind of anti-automated submission stuff built in. And some hacker somewhere reverse engineered it and figured out how to auto-submit stuff to Boing Boing, and then put it in a submit your web page to 5 million search engines tool, which is then sold as part of a pyramid scheme, mostly to people who've recently lost their jobs and been told that they can get a new job on the internet, you know, selling mortgage services or something. So like every day we get thousands, literally thousands of posts from people advertising their mortgage services. And we have never once posted anything that was a mortgage service. Nofollow is predicated on the idea that spammers will see the nofollow tag in such wide use that they'll become disheartened and stop sending spam to blogs. But like the spammers in this instance are people who don't even know that Boing Boing exists, or whether